Pokemon is complex, so I've traveled all the way to South Korea to understand it and get better at it. Not really, I've just traveled here for a holiday. But we're here regardless. So today we're going to be talking about how you can improve at Pokemon. And obviously there's some very simple things I could say, just play more, But I think that's besides the point. I think understanding Pokemon at its fundamentals is quite important, and also understanding where to start, because having a really strong foundation of Pokemon, like having a very strong foundation of knowing where to begin and knowing where to start and knowing what's important is, very good. And I think that's something that I kind of missed as a player when I started playing this game. So I'm going to leave a few resources in the description and up on screen now to kind of give you a head start and where I would recommend looking first if you want to get into the game. However, today I'm also going to be going over a few more deep examples, if you know what I'm saying, so that it isn't just, play more, go check Limitless, go watch the game, go watch streamers, get coaching, So I think understanding Pokemon is really important, and understanding why a deck is built the way a deck is built. For example, let's take a look at Dragapult right now. Dragapult is really good. Dragapult is by far the best deck in the game, and that is for a good reason. But why is Dragapult so good? I think this can be broken down into three main reasons. One, it has a lot of agency over what you want to do. The cards you choose, thanks to the draw engine, the way you attack, thanks to the damage counters being placed, and also the way the deck is built. Dragapult has many different variants. There's straight Dragapult, there's Dragapult Dusknoir, there's Dragapult Blaziken, there's Dragapult Greninja, there's Dragapult Dunsparce. There's a lot of Dragapults, right? And I think that's something that attests to show like how strong its core is, and that leads me to its second thing, being the Dracloak. It has a built-in draw engine, which is obviously really good. Decks that have built-in draw engines tend to do better than decks that don't have built-in draw engines. Like, for example, Dragapult and Grimmsnarl are at heart very similar. They have an attack that does a set amount of damage, and then they have like a little bit of bench damage, right? And that is also pretty good. However, Dragapult has a built-in draw engine, whereas Grimmsnarl has a built-in energy engine, and both of these have seen a good amount of success. However, Dragapult is a lot more splashable because of that built-in draw engine. Dracloak being so damn good at what it does is just very important for the identity of Dragapult. And that's another thing, that's the stability of Dragapult. So we have kind of the agency over the cards, the way you build the deck, the way you play the deck, and also agency over the cards you draw in the game thanks to Dracloak. And then you have the skill ceiling. Dragapult is a deck that is very intricate. It is very simple at its core, but I think its identity is that it is a very complicated and difficult deck to master. A lot of the top players play Dragapult because of its very high skill ceiling. It's a very good deck to understand a lot of the core concepts of the game, but it's also a very good deck to win because it's just so damn good at what it does. And that's something else. That has a very clear game plan for every single game, but that game plan can be tailored and kind of touched up upon in every single game. There's no single game where you have to go the exact same line, and that's something else, is that it's basically a problem-solving deck that teaches you a lot about the game. And that takes me to the next thing, is teaching you about the game. How would I recommend, starting off? When I started, I built my own decks, very big mistake, and it took me a very long time to learn a lot of these core concepts about the game. I think setting realistic goals for yourself, whether that goal is to just have fun and enjoy the game, then just build your own decks, have fun, whatever. But if you are trying to get better at the game and want to win, well, then I would probably say go to Limitless and just steal decks. Steal the best deck. There's a reason the deck is the best deck in the game right now, and just play with those decks. And then from there, you'll kind of understand why those decks are good and what makes good decks good, and then you can go and build your own decks, Then you'll understand why Dragapult is good and why its identity is so strong, and then from there you can kind of go and be like, alright, well, yeah, Dragapult's good, I kind of understand why it's good, let me go build a deck that's similar to Dragapult, and then understand, what makes it actually good, like the draw engine, the consistency, the agency that it gives me, and the skill ceiling. And once you understand a lot of these concepts, then you'll see that the game is a lot more unsolved than you might think. You might look at a player like Tord and be like, oh, well, he's obviously the best player in the world, he knows exactly what he's doing all the time. However, there's a lot of times where even the top players don't know if what they did was optimal. Like, for example, there was the play where we had Riley McKay passing against Tord instead of attacking, where most people would have just, attacked. And that's like something that's really cool, is that you'll see a lot of these top players still be confused or even ask other top players if that was correct, because in the moment they don't know. So don't think that there's, you know, a skill ceiling that there's a level you have to be at, because everyone's at a different level and the game is completely unsolved yet. It's still wide open, and playing to the best of your abilities is very different as playing perfectly, because playing perfectly has to take a lot into account, and a lot more than any human realistically can take into account. It takes like really small percentages to understand what cards in your deck, what percentages you have of drawing into it, and you would need, you know, a super calculator to kind of figure out those percentage, and on the fly that's never going to happen. And that leads me to my next point: playing with as much like consistency and as close to perfection as possible. That means a few different things. It's understanding the different core concepts of the game, such as thinning, you know, thinning is winning. Also maximizing your outs. There is a game that I think is a really good showing of this. It is the finals of the World Championships in the senior division between Gabriel Fernandez and, I'm very sorry, I forgot his name, but the Chinese player. And it shows that the last few turns show being able to play as close to perfectly as possible. It changes percentages by a little bit, but sometimes that 3 extra percent might swing the game in your favor, and that's something that I think you should definitely be doing. But how do you do that? How do I just say, oh, just, you know, play perfectly, you know? Well, I think recording your games and being present while playing your games is very important. Anyone can switch on Pokemon Live and just play a game or two and kind of, you know, get better at the game that way. However, that is not very efficient. It is not a great use of your time, and I don't recommend it. I think if you want to play Pokemon Live, or just Pokemon in general, and get better at Pokemon in general, then you need to have a kind of idea behind that. You need to play Pokemon and just play Pokemon well and efficiently. So kind of load up the game, take notes of what's happening. If you lose, why did you lose? Where did you go wrong? What happened that caused you to lose? And was it preventable? Was it in your control, or was it in your opponent's control? Was there anything that you could have done better? Was there anything that you could have forced your opponent to do? And then once you start asking yourself these kinds of questions, then you'll kind of ask these kinds of questions inside of the game as well, instead of after the game and recording them, right? So watching your games back is really good, because it kind of shows you, like I said, where you went wrong and how you could have prevented that. And then the more you do this, the easier it'll be to kind of ask yourself these questions and answer these questions yourself during the game while you're playing. That's something that I like to do. When a turn starts, I'll ask myself, what is my goal this turn? If I'm unable to achieve that goal, what is my next best fallback option? And then you'll kind of take your turn fairly slowly and go into it understanding what your goals are that turn. And if that doesn't work out, for example, if you don't draw into the boss's orders or a way to find the boss's orders, what is your fallback plan? Maybe it's Itchy Pollen. So if you're playing a deck like Zoroark, that its turns change a lot with the turn going on. For example, let's say you're looking for a boss, but you don't have the boss in the end, so you have to do something else. What was that second best thing? Maybe it was a Badoo, but you might have traded away that Badoo. So maybe you kind of tunnel visioned on that boss play and were putting all of your eggs in that one basket. So maybe you could have traded away something else instead of that Badoo to be able to Itchy Pollen at the end of the turn, instead of shoe-horsing or horseshoeing yourself into the boss play. And that kind of is playing to your outs and playing to, you know, maximize your turn. Even if that Badoo wasn't the perfect play, it was the best play you had available to yourself. And that's something else. Being able to play perfectly doesn't mean winning every game. Pokemon has variance. Everyone loses. There is no player that has never lost, right? Unless you load up the game, win once, and then close the game. 100% win rate is just unattainable. There is too much variance in this game, so you can't blame yourself for losing. Sometimes you will still play basically perfectly and do everything you could have done, but you'll still lose. Unfortunately, that's just how the game is. Some matchups are just bad and unwinnable, and other matchups don't really matter because you just dead drew, right? Just because I have a 99-1 matchup against the deck, I'm playing Crossel against Ethan's Typhlosion, doesn't mean I have to scoop instantly, because what if my opponent bricks? What if they have no good cards? So that's also playing to your outs, but it also is good to know when to scoop. If I am playing Crossel, and I am playing against Ethan's Typhlosion, and they set up, and I see that they have at least 3 attackers, they're going to be able to chain these attackers, I may as well scoop and go to the next game, right? And then hope to play it like that. If it's a best of 1, don't scoop, they might die of a blood clot or something like that, so you can always play to those outs. But yeah, understanding when to scoop is also another good skill to have. Being able to identify what you are capable of and what your opponent is also capable of is something else that I think is quite important. For example, let's say you are playing against Dragapult and your opponent doesn't have any energy on their board. They have two Dracloaks and a Monkey Dory, and you do not want them to Phantom Dive this next turn. But if they have a Dracloak inactive, all they need is Dragapult and, well, Crispin, and they can, Phantom Dive. However, knowing that Dragapult doesn't usually play switch cards, a play you could make is boss up that Monkey Dory and Ichipon, or pass, because there is a very high chance they will not be able to Phantom Dive that turn, because if they Crispin, they can't switch out the Monkey Dory and attach to the Dragapult in the same turn, right? It's just not enough energy to go around to do that play. And if they do that, they'll have to Jet Headbutt, which just isn't good. So it'll force them probably into something like a Badoo. And if you just needed one more turn to set up your board a little bit stronger, then maybe that one turn of bossing up your opponent's Monkey Dory would have, almost won you the game, because you had that one extra turn of setup instead of getting Phantom Dive that turn. And that's something that, people might not do. For example, I had someone ask me, I had a Lilies and I had a Crispin, but I didn't know which one was better, so I didn't play any. I think it's a fair kind of outlook on it, where you didn't really know which one was better or which one would have given you more value, so you kind of wanted to wait for the next turn to see what occurred. However, the thing is with Pokemon is that you don't have that much time, right? It's like one turn can swing the game very quickly. You miss one card, your opponent misses one card, or they find one card, or you find one card, and the game is very different as if the person didn't find that card. So I think even if both of those cards are good, but you don't know which one is better, it's still a good idea to play one of them, because both of them have value. The Crispin will find you energy, and having more energy on the board as Dragapult is good regardless, and Lily will just find you more cards, which is also good regardless, even if it doesn't find you that Crispin on the following turn, and that's when you actually would have needed it. However, it also kind of sucks, because let's say if you didn't play the Crispin, but the next turn you needed to Crispin plus Boss, right? Now you can't. But if you did play that Crispin on the turn prior, you've now opened up more options for yourself to be able to make these decisions. Since you played Crispin last turn, I can now Lily this turn, or I can Boss, right? So it just opens up options. That's something else, is leaving those options open for yourself, like I said with that End Zoroark trading away the Badoo kind of thing. So that's all I really have for now. This is a very kind of off of the top of the head video, unscripted as you can tell, because not really many places to write a script over here. But yeah, if any of these tips helped you, then leave a like, leave a sub, and I'll make more of these soon. Cheers.